Welcome to BackPageLead, the second vidcast we're doing for the season. Wayne Carey, welcome.
Thanks, Charlie. Good to be here.
It was a pretty amazing round of footy, wasn't it, round one? We had 4 results, I think, 4 games decided by 4 points or fewer, and one wasn't decided at all. Melbourne and Sydney was a draw. What took your eye?
I think what took my eye, I think the obvious, which is exactly what you just said. I think the closeness of the first round. I think obviously the Bombers were the surprise packet. I think most of us had the Bulldogs finishing in the top 4, and I still do. But, I think this happened with, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Bombers later, but I just think the overall closeness of the comp, I think, the fact that Adelaide Crows came back and got over Hawthorn, everyone expecting Hawthorn to be a real powerhouse again this year. Adelaide, geez, they've got some exciting youngsters. One being Corey McKernan's younger brother looks very exciting. So, overall, I think round one was probably as good as it gets.
We will touch on Essendon in a minute and St James, the Messiah. Collingwood looked absolutely untroubled in beating Port Adelaide. You had Geelong-St Kilda fighting out an absolute eyesore. I mean, Geelong kicking 1 goal till half time was almost unprecedented.
Yep.
Was that down to their changed game plan of Chris Scott's making more emphasis on defence, or is it down to St Kilda?
Well, I think we've seen St Kilda do that to sides over the last few years now. So, not having seen all of the games, saw a fair bit of it. I'd put it down maybe more to St Kilda and the way they go about playing their footy. Although we have heard Ross Lyon say that he wants to obviously improve that in the goal scoring. But look, Geelong did very well. I mean, they crowded Nick Riewoldt. It was very hard for both sides, very hard to score. And really, it was St Kilda that really lost that rather than Geelong win it. I mean, the last sort of 10 seconds where they come back through the corridor and made a kicking error really cost them.
You mentioned Ross Lyon's pre-season or stated ambition to take a bit of the load off Nick Riewoldt. There didn't look like to be a lot of that going on in round one, and it might be a long season for your buddy, who's going to have to shoulder the load again. Yeah, look,
the simple facts are that he's a big boy when he leads, when he moves. The only thing you see, and when he's been such a beacon for that side for so long, doesn't matter whether you try to do other things or not. When they move, your eye goes to them.
Hair.
Yeah, it's very hard, especially for players coming up. They're so used to going to them. You can't just switch that on and off like a light switch. That's going to take a lot more work for them to use other options. And look, it'll work itself out. That was just one of those games. Nick did get crowded up. I'm sure he'll bounce back next week
against his brother. It's the Riewoldt v Riewoldt show, St Kilda v Richmond.
Yeah, well, look, I watched a little bit of Jack. He's just very good one-on-one, isn't he? He's and like Nick,
or Cousins.
Cousins, like Nick. He very good overhead, but he's very strong in the body. He doesn't look as tall as Nick, but he is. He's very strong. It was an impressive game for someone that he probably only had, I reckon, 10 contests. Kicked 6 goals, so I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Having not seen a lot of him last year, because I went to the Blockbusters, and let's be honest, Richmond weren't in any of those Blockbusters.
They do play Friday night this weekend, though. Okay, without any further ado, let's get on to the subject everyone's talking about. The Golden Boy has returned to Essendon, Jimmy Hirdy. I think you and I might have picked them to finish out of the 8, but we're 1/24 of the way through the season, so we shouldn't get too carried away. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly right. I don't think I don't think you can obviously judge a season on round one. Very similar to read the Herald Sun today. Don't believe everything you read, but the interesting thing about that was that Matty Knight started exactly the same way when he took over the Bombers, and I think they had a picture today of Joe Watson celebrating that win, and everyone saying, the new baby Bombers, and here we go, and it's very, very similar to that. It is very easy to get up. You've got a new coach, you've got new ideas, everyone's enthusiastic. It's a long year. Their toughest week, believe it or not, is going to be this week against a hardened unit in the Sydney Swans.
Yeah, up in Sydney.
Up in Sydney.
Yeah. Brisbane, of course, won the first 4 matches last year too, and people were talking about them as a challenger for Geelong.
Well, I think most sides at the start of the year, if they've got everyone up and going, they've got no injuries, obviously no suspensions, although there've been a couple of suspensions already. You really give yourself a chance. And look, if the Bombers have got their best side on the park, I mean, Hill was just superb, as was Watson. They're one of those sides that just can't afford to have a couple of injuries, and we know the better sides can afford to have a couple and still perform. Your Collingwoods, your St Kildas, and those that have been around the mark, but really the Bombers have to have everyone up and going for them to be competitive. I still don't think they'll make the 8.
But we should give them a bit of credit because the defensive pressure compared to last year was fantastic.
Look, you can only beat what's put in front of you. And it's round 1. They've won. They're sitting on top of the ladder. You've got to give them all the credit for last week.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, let's not get too carried away, Charlie. Long way to go.
Now, Geelong-St Kilda. Let's just talk about that for a quick second. An absolute eyesore it was for 3 quarters, and then the game was only redeemed by what happened in the last quarter. But you're saying you reckon St Kilda let that one slip?
Yeah, well, I thought, look, there are a lot of little moments within a game that determine whether you win or lose. Often it comes down to that last, 20 or 30 seconds, and obviously what happened was an error in a kick, and then it goes down the other end of the ground, and they kick a goal, and albeit by a defender, played all his career down back, and he kicks the winning goal. So, look, things will open up. It was just one of those games. That's one of the games that I suppose people don't like to watch. We had 2 of the better sides, or what have been 2 of the better sides over the last 6-7 years, play probably the worst game of the year.
Yeah.
Worst game of the year in terms of a spectacle. As far as kicking goals and real excitement, but I'm sure the Cats will be happy with it.
Now let's look ahead to round 2. We're Gold Coast Suns. It's an area you're obviously familiar with, having lived there for a while. Make their AFL debut, and they play Carlton at the Gabba on Saturday night. Be a fascinating match to see how they go, but made even more fascinating by Karmichael Hunt's likely appearance, the rugby league convert.
Yeah, heard Guy McKenna talk about Carmichael playing this week. He said he's in his best side. It's going to be a fascinating game. A couple of people are actually tipping the Suns. I've just heard along the grapevine they think they'll make a good account of themselves. I can't see the Suns beating the Blues. I think the Blues got a little bit of a scare last week against Richmond, and then really showed that they're going to be a quality side, kicking 6 goals in the last quarter. A couple of those big guys that they just hang on to their marks. I mean, they're when you got Chris Judd and Bryce Gibbs and Murphy and all those guys running through the midfield, Cade Simpson, all of those guys, you're always going to get enough ball into that forward 50. I don't think the Suns will upset Carlton. Karmichael Hunt, if it was anyone else, he wouldn't be getting a game. I don't think he's done enough. I haven't seen him get any more than 15 possessions, albeit. So don't shoot me down. I haven't seen all of their intra-club games, all their practice games. I haven't seen the way he's trained. I've seen him from afar. I've watched how his skills. If he's going in there purely to negate someone as a defender, and he does that, is that just good enough in today's footy to justify a position? Well, it was 10 years ago. It's not anymore. I mean, you really, you're a negator on ball. If you cut a Chris Judd out, you're still expected to get a little bit of the ball. Down defence now, you've got to really, that's where the drive starts from, so you've got to get a bit of the ball. I'm not sure they'll be I'm not sure they'll be switching play to Karmichael Hunt through the corridor and then expecting Carmichael to pinpoint a pass through the midfield.
He's a long-term project, though, isn't he?
Long-term project, but you'd have to earn your spot. I'm not so sure he's up to playing in their game, but we'll wait and see.
Do you reckon so? As much a sort of publicity gimmick as someone earning their spot legitimately?
Well, I think you've got to earn your spot. What it will do if eventually if other players within that side, talented footballers that have been playing their whole life, all of a sudden see Karmichael Hunt getting a game ahead of them, and they're saying, well, hang on, this bloke can't kick left foot, he can't handball, he can't really mark as good as me, but they're playing him.
Yeah.
I mean, that could cause a little bit of a rift.
Brilliant. Well, all this and more will be revealed on the weekend, and look forward to seeing you for the third vidcast next week. Wayne Carey, thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Cheers.